And Nick Young, everybody. Big round of applause for Nick Young, serial entrepreneur. China, we're going to have a seat right over here. Man, so there's a ton of stuff to talk about. I'm going to put my phaser on stun to make sure that it doesn't vibrate during this. Okay, excellent. So for those of you who maybe have been living under a rock and never heard of Nick before, he is the co-founder of CHINICT, acquired by Sohu. He's also the co-founder of Kongzhong, which went from zero to IPO in less than a couple of years, and he is now a very active angel investor. And I'd love to just talk a little bit about your background, kind of like your path to your first startup here in China with that China Ren story. I actually competed against him at the original Ren back in the 90s, and they completely kicked our ass. But anyway, let's learn a little bit more about that, please.
Okay. Hi, everybody. My name is Nick Yang, and I came to China from the United States to start my company. The first company was called CHINICT back in 1999. It was my first company, and I was a fresh graduate from Stanford at that time, so no work experience at all. And it was at the first wave of the internet in the late 90s, and we raised venture capital funding, and we built a social site. And the number one product we had was called an Alumni Club, which is it should, if we manage to survive.
Original Facebook.
Original Facebook.
Real original Facebook.
Yes.
Campus specific, yes.
But we couldn't last through the first bubble burst of the internet bubble, so we had to sell the company to Sohu in 2000. Then starting a second company in 2002, and we took the company public in 2004, which is Kongzhong, which is the leading wireless as a service company. And right now, I'm very involved in angel investing, working with a lot of entrepreneurs, and I have my own fund, an angel investment fund, which is called Le Box Capital. And I run what I call an entrepreneur's clinic. So every week, if I'm in Beijing, I run it at least once a week, that I'm in one of those entrepreneurial cafes. I announced on my Weibo that any entrepreneur who has any questions or needing advice or whatever, looking for funding or not looking for funding, it doesn't matter. I'm here to help. So I'm like a doctor in the clinic.
Awesome. What's your Weibo handle?
Weibo 天使投资人杨宁.
Oh.
Yeah.
比较长. Okay.
So angel investor.
Yeah, it's good. So follow this guy on Weibo, and then once he actually announces, I want to go check that out. That sounds awesome. That's
very awesome.
Giving back to the ecosystem.
Yes, and everybody can learn from each other. Because I run the clinic, people sit in a big circle, everybody goes around and say what they're doing and what they need help on. So anything about managing the team, about marketing, about channels, about sales, about products, any question you can have about entrepreneurship, you can ask me. I give my true, honest opinion. And with no charge, free.
That's awesome. So I'm sure you've built up a lot of valuable scar tissue, like a suit of armor over the years. It's been 13 years since you started China Ren. Maybe you could take us back to China Ren. Maybe some of the takeaways from that, some of the lessons that you learned from the early days that you can still apply.
So first of all, China participated in a very fast-growing market, and that's one thing that I think everybody can take away from it. Is that whenever you enter a market, make sure to enter one that's rapidly growing, because in Chinese, when the tide rises, you rise with it. So when the market grows very quickly, you can grow quickly as well. So that's one takeaway you can have. And the second takeaway you can have is that when the time is good, raise as much money as you can, and spend as little as you can. So just imagine that times won't be good forever. So cash is king, and when it runs out, you run out of cash, you run out of blood. And when that happens, either you die or you need to be acquired. Those are the two takeaways.
Excellent, yeah, and I think you experienced, a few of us here experienced the dot bomb at the end when everything was kind of bleak, but you guys had a very nice exit to Sohu, and China Ren was able to continue. And then I think that you were able to really ride that tide. You were just telling me before that he's going back to Stanford to the Graduate School of Business to talk about the Kongzhong experience. They're doing a case study on it. That's a pretty gigantic honor. Stanford has a gigantic alumni group to pick from, so that's a kind of a factory. So tell us about the Kongzhong rocket ship and the story behind that. So you took one of the founders from China Ren, Zhou Yinfan, and started Kongzhong. Yeah?
Yes, the two of us started Kongzhong in May of 2002, and we went into the business of wireless value-added services. At the time was SMS, MMS, Java games, and local downloads, ringtones, etc. So these are the wireless value-added services. And we grew very quickly, and in 2 years and 2 months, we became one of the leaders in this field. And we took the company public in 2004, July 2004. So it was 2 years and 2 months from start to IPO, and that's still a record.
That's terrific. And interestingly enough, the third co-founder of China Ren, he ended up starting the now listed Ren,
yes.
Zhou Chen. So it's sort of this interesting kind of like PayPal type of mafia that spawned all of these companies in the U.S. China Ren's a little bit of like that. Actually, my co-founder in my new venture was your, I think, first employee, Zany, and then he started. It's all very incestuous, but it's so since your operational involvement in Kongzhong has sort of diminished, you've gotten a lot more involved in the angel community. Tell me about some of the things that you look for when you make angel investments and some of the areas that excite you these days.
Okay. Basically, there's two types of companies that we invest in. One type is that the companies, the business model, the product, or the market is so good that it takes a half-brain entrepreneur to make it work. So it's not hard, and the market's so good, and the product's so good, that then this type of company I will invest in. The other type is that it's a Red Sea, but the entrepreneur is so good that he will survive very well in the Red Sea. These are the second type of company I will invest in. So these are the only two types.
Can you give us so basically kind of blue ocean, red ocean, but
yes, blue ocean, red ocean.
Awesome ship, awesome captain, I guess.
Yes, awesome ship, awesome captain.
If I may, can you give a couple examples of do you feel comfortable?
Okay. Well, actually, this is the way you can think about blue ocean and red ocean. A blue ocean typically is that the market is very small right now. It's you're ahead of the market, and the market will grow very quickly, and there's not that many people in it yet. These are the type of markets you can look for, which is like one thing I'm investing in now is a company doing what's called the micro movies, the 微电影.
We were talking about that in the first session. Yes, that's really getting a lot of traction now.
Yes, it's still blue ocean because the number of serious participants in the micro movies is not that great, and the market will grow very rapidly in the next 2 to 3 years. So I believe that there's still a lot of opportunities in this field. And the red ocean, well, there's lots of red oceans. So a great captain can do very well in the red ocean.
Fascinating, very interesting. And what do you see sort of as some kind of future direction of the
investing?
Sort of the entrepreneurial landscape in China, and also maybe some industries?
I think one thing I look for is that online to offline type of businesses, so that a lot of companies can do a offline business, a traditional business, but using the online as a brand building and marketing channel. So these are the type of companies I think there will be a lot of convergence between the offline businesses and online. Not your typical online offline that they because what I see a lot of entrepreneurs, they still want to be very light, so they only want to partner with the offline companies, but that partnership is very weak. So a lot of times you really have to do the offline components as well in your entrepreneurship with the online. So online and offline doing together. And this is one area I look for. And second thing I'm looking for is what's called 消费升级. Is that China is becoming a consumer society, from an investment-driven GDP structure to a consumer consumption-driven GDP structure. And with a lot of consumption, there will be a lot of opportunities in consuming all kinds of products and services, especially upgrading consumption. So these are the opportunity, a lot of opportunities you can have in the consumer space.
Upgrade consumption, meaning upgrading your lifestyle and...
Yes, before they're buying cheap, they're buying generic. Now there's much more demand on buying good stuff.
So maybe replacing existing goods and upgrading your life. Interesting. And what about what are some of the biggest changes you've seen in the whole ecosystem here, the Chinese sort of entrepreneurial community and in Beijing, and some of the sort of evolutions?
I think right now,
compared to Silicon Valley, perhaps, if you.
I think it's because I travel all over the country running my entrepreneurial clinic, so I see entrepreneurs in all provinces, and it's very interesting that Beijing has the biggest population of entrepreneurs in the country. That's one thing. The second is that the Beijing entrepreneurs typically have a more broader view of the industry, and some of the inner city entrepreneurs they're too limited in their scope of view. So a lot of things they don't grasp these new ideas and new models as quickly as the Beijing entrepreneurs. So one thing I recommend for all entrepreneurs in China is that if you want to start a company, there's only maybe 4 places you should aggregate to. 3 or 4 places. The number 1 place to start a company is still in Beijing. Beijing is the best place to start a company. And second best is maybe Shanghai. And third is probably Shenzhen. And fourth, there's a tie between Hangzhou and Guangzhou. And the rest places, you will have a hard time finding team, finding money, and well, it's still, I mean, there's no absolutes, right? You can start a company anywhere in China, but it's easier to do it in these places.
Interesting, and I think it's been maybe overstated, perhaps too much, that Beijing is the Silicon Valley of not only China but maybe Asia. But as one of the few people to really kind of bridge those 2 places, I think you do spend time, between the two. Any sort of observations or anything that you can share comparing them?
I think in China, there's still a lack of the angel community, so that a lot of entrepreneurs, what I find is that when they fund the first batch of funding, it's very, very difficult for these Chinese entrepreneurs. But while in the US, the angel community is very, very developed. And so it's relatively easy for American entrepreneurs to find the first round of funding. But in China, it's more difficult. But in China, there's lots and lots of funds investing in later stages, like in those big PE funds, private equity funds. So there's an interesting saying that 天使靠眼光 PE 靠酒量. So what that means is that for angel investors, you have to have a good eye to find good companies. For the private equity guys, they just need to have they just have to beg the entrepreneurs to let them in.
Yeah, that actually is, I think, a very interesting trend, that there really is this big gap between, like, say, 100,000 renminbi and maybe $1 million US, or even 100,000 US. There's a gap, I think, in the market, and I think too many people are chasing too few deals in the ABC rounds. What do you see? I know you spend some time in the rest of Asia and Singapore as well too. How do you see the comparison between, say, China and the rest of Asia, or Southeast Asia specifically, in the whole entrepreneurial scene?
China.
That's the last question. Just
okay. We're very lucky because China has the most active and experienced entrepreneurial group in Asia, first of all. And second, China is the biggest market in Asia. So I think it's if you look elsewhere in the rest of the Asia, although the competitive level of these entrepreneurs is lower, for example, like Singapore or Malaysia or Indonesia, but also the market is smaller. And the entrepreneurs I talk to in Southeast Asia, that every day they just pray that the Chinese entrepreneurs don't go there. Because if they do, well, they're not very competitive against the Chinese guys.
That's fascinating you say that, because I've met other Chinese entrepreneurs and they go into another market and they don't even care about the domestic players or existing players, and they find out about another Chinese entrepreneur that's coming in. And they say, oh, it's a small company, only have 7 people. I don't care. We have to watch that guy, right? So I think that's an interesting phenomenon. I think as the market matures here, there's going to be more and more Chinese, companies going into other markets and really, dominating. So. Terrific. Nick Yang, everybody. Serial entrepreneur, angel investor extraordinaire. Thank you very much, Nick. That's great. Thanks. Have a good trip back to your...